Welcome to the Sack Race Reacts. Today we're looking at Ipswich Town. Paul Lambert has left, but before we get underway, the Celtic next manager market is still up on the site, thesackrace.com, so check that out. And Darren Moore has left Doncaster for Sheffield Wednesday too. But today it's all about Ipswich Town. We're joined by Luke Penning. Luke, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Jack. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Before we get underway, where can people find you on Twitter and YouTube?
On Twitter, Luke Penning VGP, and just type my name into YouTube as well. I do videos, like a kind of fans perspective on scouting. So I take a look at a lot of lower league talent, players that I think clubs, League One, League Two, probably should sign. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Paul Lambert, he left on Sunday night after 2.5 years. Luke, what was your initial reaction to this?
Yeah, it's a kind of a bit of a shock, really. We knew as fans, we half expected him to be, sack or leave the end of last season because, we started well, faded. This season, it was kind of more the same. I think, ironically enough, since the fan group Blue Action came out and did a couple of series of protests, it's been going on before the whole training ground incident. There's a lot of posters and banners of Lambert out. There's a newspaper mock-up on the security fence of the training ground. So that had kind of been going on, for the last couple of weeks. The local newspaper, the East Anglian Daily Times, officially called for the manager to go. It's only the second time they've done it, and I think they're 116-year history as a newspaper.
Who was the first manager?
It was Jim Magilton, under the original editor of the newspaper. But yeah, since then onwards, we kind of half expected it to happen. It's just, with Marcus Evans, he put out a vote of confidence, I think late December, basically reiterated it again, basically the other day, saying, we're not going to get rid of Paul Lambert. But obviously it's happened, it was kind of weird circumstances last night. You hear about this all takeoff stuff, which I'm pretty sure we'll get onto. Yeah, I didn't half expect it to happen now, but I think, with the rumours going around about takeover and that being done with obviously the Athletic story coming out that I think was Friday, it's kind of sped things up a bit. And, I saw the other day on Twitter, Sheffield Wednesday journalists were saying, oh, maybe Cook's back in the running. Maybe that was a way of him putting his voices out there to get things sped up. Or, it was quite ironic, really, because I was listening to Paul Lambert's final interview as manager post-match on Saturday, and he kind of ended it with, well, I know as much as you fans, maybe Paul Cook's sitting in my chair right now, and he ended it with, I'm just going to go for a beer. And it's quite ironic because when he came into the club, when we were relegated, on 31 points from 49 games, a lot has been said about him about being PR Paul, about bringing the fans back on side. He did well in that aspect, but at the same time, it's just run its course, really.
Was it quite a controversial appointment? Because he was from Norwich, former Norwich manager. I think he was the only manager to ever manage both clubs. He couldn't keep you up, but I don't think too many people completely blamed it. It was a poor start to the season. Then the last 2 years they sort of reflected each other. You've started really well. Last season, you're on a great run. Then he got that massive new contract, didn't he? Which took everyone by surprise. Then the fall in form happened. It's sort of similar this season. Do you think, are there any positives to take from his spell in charge?
Yeah, I think we, as fans, the position you talk about, obviously, I think one of the only managers to manage both Ipswich and Norwich. I remember the day, actually, I was going to watch us play. Well, we played Millwall. We lost 3-0 that day, and he was sitting in the crowd with Jim Henry, a fitness coach, and Stuart Taylor, his assistant. And, I remember hearing about Paul Lambert. You're a bit apprehensive to begin with, because obviously you hear about the Norwich connection and obviously what he did there. And then you're thinking, well, we're in this position where, I think at that point, when Paul Hurst was sacked, it was 9 points from 15 games. So we were in a low position. I don't think I ever thought in my lifetime, I'm not that old myself, but I didn't think I'd see my club get relegated. So in that position where there was a chance of probably still staying up, I think at that time, fans were desperate for some optimism and positivity. Lambert was very good in the kind of PR aspect, and, obviously in many cases probably doing more jobs than he probably should have, which obviously was Mick McCarthy did the similar kind of thing. But I think, we can look on positivity in the sense that he got the fan base back, in League One. Normally when a team gets relegated to League One or relegated in any instance, there's going to be a lot of fans that are a bit, sad or upset about what's happening. But I remember I was actually at the game when we were relegated. I think we lost against Birmingham at the end of our championship season. And I'm not sure if you've seen the video, but there's this basically viral video went live of Paul Lambert and Stuart Taylor walking up to the North Stand and all the fans are chanting. It was kind of really weird scenes, really, because the club had been relegated, and you normally associate them that situation with such a bad time. But at that period, it was unprecedented because so many people felt positive about things, which obviously when you talk about when we've both spoken about the League One form and how we started well and faded, and the same this season, it kind of doesn't match up because I think for Ipswich fans, we've been stagnating. Well, we stagnated in the Championship for 15 years, basically 13 years of decline under Marcus Evans. Obviously an owner that doesn't really like to invest that much. We just wanted positivity. Obviously, managerially, tactically, things haven't worked out for him here. I think, as we talk about potential future appointments in a minute, I think that looking back on it, the thing that I, as a fan and someone that likes to follow the quirks of clubs, is managers with promotion success recently. We look back at Lambert and his time at Norwich. Obviously, he did well back in 2011, but that's many years ago. That's almost like 10 years ago. And you look at recent appointments. Obviously Stoke and Wolves and then kind of things that it's getting teams relegated, sacked, leaving. There's not really a recent back catalogue to give us much positivity in that aspect when he was here. But as I said, we needed positivity as fans. It gave us optimism. Even when he came in, I think at the time I was like, we've been relegated, build on it next season. But even looking at it now, as I said, Hurst was sacked after 9 games with only 15 points. We finished the season on 31 points in like 45, 46 games. So even when he did come in, there wasn't really many wins. I remember a couple of draws. I think a first win against Wigan where it was an absolute torrid, windy, wet day. Finished the season at a 3-2 win against promotion chase on Leeds that season. As I said, I think it just ran its course, and I think we can be happy for the positive times that he gave us in terms of the PR aspect, but we can look on and be intrigued for the future.
Lambert has swiftly been cut from 40-1 to 9-1 to become the next Celtic manager. He's of course denied this last week, but now he's out of work. Could you see this one potentially happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. A manager like him, it's quite ironic that when he was originally linked, I guess when he was still here, he didn't probably want to say too much, but at the same time, he was like, I didn't want to tarnish my reputation with the fans, I think was the quote that he said. I think it's quite ironic, really, because in the sense that when he was here, the relationship between him and the fans was actually really good. He was meeting with local fan groups and getting involved with the fans, buying beers and, in our relegation season, paying for coach travel and that sort of thing. So it's quite ironic he says that in terms of wanting to, the worry of potentially tarnishing a relationship with the fans, because with how things went here near the end of his reign, that kind of happened. But at the same time, I think going back to Scotland probably suits him, I think, down to the ground. Obviously, I'm not sure how Celtic fans are going to feel about it, because obviously they're going to probably want him to read in. Obviously, Celtic legend, that sort of thing. We hear about it all the time. He's kind of played for big clubs. But I think, it does suit him down to the ground going to Scotland anyway. I think I couldn't see, based on, obviously, as I mentioned, the recent managerial performances that he's had in England, that I can't see him getting a job here anytime soon. But I think, Celtic are a club where they tend to deal pretty well with internal appointments. Neil Lennon did well over a period, went to Hibernian, came back, and obviously didn't work specifically well there. But I think if that was the case for Lambert, I think that's the job that probably suits him a bit more. I think, I think they're changing their structure from what I've been reading, from what's happened with in senior appointments at the club. And obviously, I think, it'll work out for him. Obviously, with this season, how it's gone for them, obviously with Rangers being so far ahead if that was to happen, he has a fair chunk of work to do. But I think the style of play that he wanted to implement here, which obviously didn't work, probably seems a bit more suited to players at Celtic like Odsonne-Edouard and Laxalt and them kind of players. So I think, yeah, it seems to work better for him anyway.
You can find all the latest odds on the sackrace.com. Eddie Howe, Steve Clark, Roberto Martinez, they're all being linked with that job at the moment. Right, on to the next Ipswich Town manager. Everything at the moment points to Paul Cook. There was that report from The Athletic, of course, last week saying he will come in when the new owners come in too. He's won 3 league titles, Portsmouth, Chesterfield and Wigan. The Wigan one was in League One. You may not win the League One title this year, but is this an appointment that can galvanise the fans, do you think?
Yeah, I think, with how things were going on, obviously the last couple of games we beat Hull and beat Doncaster on Saturday. But I recently read that was more about Matt Gill, our coach, and Jimmy Walker, our goalkeeping coach, who seemed to be taking a bit more of a hands-on look on things. Because obviously Lambert was set on a style here. But yeah, I think, we're 8th at the minute, 2 points off 6th, 4 points off 5th, I think 10 points off the top 2. So I think I don't think we can fit top 2 this season, but obviously top 6, it gives us optimism. As you said, Paul Cook has precedent for coming out of this league with Wigan. He's had good times at Chesterfield and both Portsmouth as well. I think, we've got players coming back from injury. James Norwood's come back from injury, and that's one of the things I think we've struggled with as a team. We've not had many, the attacking options haven't been there. We've had people like Aaron Drinnan, who came in from the League of Ireland a couple of years ago under Mick McCarthy, hasn't really played for us. Obviously came in this season after a loan spell at Ayr. Hasn't really only scored 1 league goal. Ollie Hawkins comes in from Portsmouth on a free, gets injured. Caden Jackson, obviously Paul Lambert put him in the bomb squad with John Nolan. So having someone like James Norwood come back from injury and scoring 4 goals in 9 games since January, 2 in the last 2 games, gives optimism for someone like Paul Cook. I'm quite excited as a Town fan. I've spoken a fair few bits to Wigan fans, and we'll be watching videos on Cook to get more of a insight into him over in the next couple of days if this appointment is true. But I think as Town fans, we can look on as optimism with as I said, potential new takeover as well.
The American investors, I read that they actually appointed Frank Yallop, the Ipswich player at Phoenix, which is quite an interesting link. But for you then, is Paul Cook, who's 1-20 on now, one bookmaker, everyone else has taken the odds down, is he your number 1 choice, or would you have liked to see the club say that doesn't work out, maybe go for the Cowley brothers? I think Kieron Dyer, he's always been linked, or maybe even someone like Neil Harris or Nigel Adkins.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think I've always been a fan of the Cowleys. I think that they hail relatively close to Ipswich, come from Essex, with Braintree and Concord. Obviously what they did with Lincoln, very, very good. I think for me and for people that I've been speaking to online, the Cowleys suit more of a Evans ownership, that kind of restricted budget, lack of structure. They're the kind of guys where they like to do a bit of everything. I know that firsthand from research I've done on my YouTube channel. They like to do a bit of everything. And, that is something that obviously when they were at Huddersfield, they wanted more control. They wanted kind of a director of football model with Carlos Corberán coming in for them. So, you think of them as well. They've had success. They had success at Lincoln. Obviously, with Huddersfield, they were 70 points off when Jan Sievert left. So he came in, kept them up. I think, as I said, I think it's more suited to an Evans ownership with the Cowleys. But as you say, if Paul Cook doesn't go through for whatever reason, they would be easily my second point. I think, some fans on Twitter maybe and wider social media that don't know much about them just associate them probably with people like Matt Reed and lumping it up. But I think their football with more technical players, as you probably really saw with Huddersfield during their time there, seemed to be a bit more progressive with their passing. I think they would obviously be my number alternative pick. I think for someone like Neil Harris, it doesn't really suit me as a fan of the club. I think primarily because he's generally grown, been at Millwall and played more of a direct style of football. At the moment, we kind of have been doing that, but in the sense of that it's direct with a purpose, is getting it to the people who can create problems quicker. Whereas under Lambert, it was more of a kind of slow start possession play to players that weren't suited playing that system. So yeah, if I had a decision, if it wasn't for Paul Cook, I would go for the Cowleys. But obviously, you do mention about Kieron Dyer. Yeah, he does have a really good coaching badges. He's done them throughout the years. He spent time with Anderlecht with Vincent Kompany, getting them as well. Obviously at the England under 20s, I think as well. But I think as Town fans, as good to see player as a player he was here, I think many Town fans would probably be a little bit more pessimistic if that was the case, primarily because, he's in charge of under 23s at the moment and is doing really well. I think they're second in the league. But I think as fans, we probably wanted to see him go out and get a position, maybe like League Two, and gain his reputation as a manager before he was to come here and manage us. But as I said, I think the Cowleys as a decent number 2 pick if Cook doesn't go through for whatever reason.
Whoever comes in, are you winning promotion this season?
As Town fans, we hope that this is the lowest that we're going to be. And obviously, investors buy the club with this is their potential lowest point. And obviously there's a ceiling that they have in mind. And as you said, someone like Paul Cook with promotion experience hopefully can take us up, fingers crossed.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Luke, on the Sack Race Reacts. Don't forget to check out Luke's page, Twitter, Luke Penning, VGP, and also his YouTube page. Luke, best of luck for the rest of the season, and I hope you get your man, whoever that is, possibly Paul Cook.
Cheers. Thank you very much.